Hey guys, I hope everybody's having a fantastic day, whether you're watching this in the morning, in the afternoon, or in the evening. I'm stoked y'all are here. First thing I want to do before I go over these super cool knives is thank all the channel members. Thank you guys and gals so much. I appreciate you. And anybody who finds their way in here to check out my knife, my ADC content, I appreciate it more than you know. I'm so thankful. If you like the content and you're so inclined, I hate to ask, but if you would, please hit that subscribe button and that bell notification icon. It really helps me out. So today, what I wanted to do, with a little help from a friend, and I'll bring him up when we get to a couple of his samples, I wanted to talk about and get y'all's feedback on what I feel like are the premier USA knife makers. Small batch, maybe medium batch, custom. And I'm not diving as much into the custom. This is actually not on the list, but it should be. This is a Zeba Knives, Michael Zeba S5, which is a tactical knife by nature. Very, very wicked, little bit of recurve drop point with a Jason Knight design blades. But this one is actually the S5 Odin, which has a lot of really intense graphics telling a story about a Norse god that I know nothing about, with some hieroglyphics, some ruins, till Valhalla on the clip. You've got really, really cool 3D jeweled backspacer made out of bronze. And when you open it up, the back side of that backspacer has more ruins carved into it. Just an amazing, amazing knife. I was going to put this in there as well because it every bit deserves to be. These are made in Brooklyn, New York. I love this knife. This is probably my number one or number two for sentimental value and for just what it is. But we're going to focus today on knives that are more common, that I think are thought of, at least in my limited, which is very limited knowledge, kind of the knives, American knives, that if you're a collector, you want to try to get. So I'm going to start with the Spartan Harsey. Regardless of whether it's a plain Harsey, a tie Harsey, one of their patterns. This happens to be the Plague Doctor. They have so many different patterns, but Spartan Blades has been making knives for a while. They also do some imported knives, but the Harsey, or the SHF, Spartan Harsey folder as this is referred to, is made here in the States. It's a knife that operates on washers. It is done amazingly smooth. You don't see a lot of the detail. Well, you do, of course, in the artwork there, which just blows me away every time I look at it. I love it so much that I got a 3 1/4 inch too in a Plague Doctor. But when you look at this knife, it's a tactical knife that's a hard use knife that doesn't have a lot of fancy, chamfering and things like that. It's just a work knife. It's a beast. It operates on washers, has the CRI, Chris Reeves integral lock, i.e. frame lock. You can thumb roll it, which is really kind of the way I prefer to open it, kind of like a Chris Reeves. It just feels better, but you can easily thumb flick it. You can easily reverse finger flick it because it's got studs on both sides. Just a fantastic USA made specimen. Spartan Knives. This is the Harsey. They also make a 3 1/4 inch Harsey, and a few others of their fixed blades and knives are made here in the States. But this is one that I can give my seal of approval on and say, if you're looking for a hard use work knife that's basic but meant to be passed down, quality USA made product, can't go wrong with the Spartan Harsey. So as we move on, we come across a knife that came into my life late in the game, but they seem to be sought after. They seem to be one of the big three when you talk to certain different aficionados, and everybody likes different stuff, right? But this is the Strider SNG. Now, they make a Strider SMF, or PT, smaller Striders, bigger Striders, all different types of Striders, right? And they run the gamut in all kinds of price points. But they're domestically produced. They're made here in the USA. Strider's unique in using a lot of kind of cool different tool steels. This is PD or PDS1 tool steel. You got mixed Strider, USA. You got the Strider logo, titanium frame lock. This is the crosshatch Strider. This knife is also on washers. The crosshatch just means that this G10 show side is contoured and it's kind of a monoblock that ties into this flamed titanium frame lock. Absolutely has great action. It's on washers too. When I first got it, had a little bit of lock stick. I couldn't middle finger flick it. I've not adjusted the pivot. I've just literally worked it, let it break in. And I can tell you guys, it's a fantastic knife. And what I love about it, when I first got this knife, I got it, I got F&Grow, a big one, but then I got a ProTech SNG after getting a PT207. And the multiple grips, or the two grips, you've really got this back grip and the grip that I use exclusively, which is this choked up grip. It just works absolutely wonderful. This knife feels like an extension of the hand. It's a hard use knife. It's got some American heritage behind it. Made in the USA, in a factory that makes knives, that grinds knives, and I'm a huge fan. So coming in, we'll say at number 10, and these are not in order. This is just 10 knives fast. Number 10 is going to be the Strider SNG. Or number 9, because our number 10 was our Harsey. So moving on, we come to another U.S. maker, and this one is going to be courtesy of my brother from another mother, A to Z EDC, over on Instagram. He's not on YouTube. He's a consumer. He views shit on YouTube, but he doesn't post any stuff. But he does post a lot of his collection daily over on Instagram. Give him a follow. He and I were at the Nashville Knife Show, and I had a couple of knives that I was planning on picking up. The EDW from Colin McGuire and the Splinter from Jason Dyer, Driver Defense. Jason Driver Defense. We were early in. We had early bird tickets, and I went with A to Z. I was standing in line at the Demko table while he was looking around because I wanted to see what they had. And I ended up getting a special little shark cub that was a Nashville milled special design. But they had a lot of these American-made AD-20s. For these, I think these were $600 in titanium. And they also had a lot of seconds in G10. I wish I had picked up one of these knives. I'm very, very kind of bummed that I didn't, because I could have done it at the time. I can't do it now, but I could have done it at the time. This is an Elmax slicer grind. I've got, I think you guys know, I think now 4 20.5s. I've got an arcade. I've got a shark cub. I'm a huge fan of Demko and the shark lock. But this AD-20 feels so good. It gives you the benefit not only of the slicer blade. Let's just get some paper. Guys, this is from the factory, all right? It's just that sharp. But it feels great in hand. It's made right here in the States by, where's this say? In Wampum, PA. Wampum, Pennsylvania. But you've got thumb studs, if you like thumb studs. You've got a deployment hole, if you like a deployment hole. You've got amazing action. You've got a great feeling knife. And the Demko American class or American handmade knives, I think, are up there as good as anybody's. A different knife. It's different than a lot of the frame locks. But I'm going to let this one come in at number 8. Not that these are, again, this isn't a race. But then we're going to look at what I consider another premier knife maker that catches a lot of grief. And several of these that I bring out, they're going to be grief. But this is the Rick Hinderer Knives XM-18. I've got several Hinderers. I felt like the XM-18 would probably be the best representation of a common Hinderer. It's probably the most well known, or they probably make the most 3.5-inch XM-18s with different blade styles. This is a Spanto in S45 VN. It's got some blood on it. I need to get that off. In S45 VN, it is, I sharpened it down to 19 degrees. I'm doing one for my buddy at 15 because that's the edge that it was on. But Hinderers, maybe from the manufacturer, are not as slicey, but they are very easy to turn into a slicing machine. This one has the tri-way pivot system, which means I'm running skiff bearings in it. It ships with bearings in the pivot, but it also comes with phosphorus bronze washers. It comes with Teflon washers, and it's kind of your choice. I've switched them out some because washer knives feel different than bearing knives, and washer knives will operate in different conditions, sandy, dirty, better than bearing knives maybe. But the Hinderer XM-18, the Hinderer Eclipse, the Hinderer Jurassic, the Hinderer Half Track, the Hinderer Full Track, all of Hinderer knives are made with care. They're beefy, they're overbuilt. If I'm not mistaken, they're made in Iowa or Idaho, but I'm probably wrong. Just done exceptionally well. I think they're a premium USA manufacturer. You can buy these knives. They have a set price. All dealers sell them for, with a G10 scale, for $425. Yeah, it's a lot of money for a knife, but it's a USA made heirloom knife. That comes with a G10 scale. If you want to add a titanium scale, save up. That's $200. So this knife, as it sits, $625. The Demko, when I bought it at the show, when my buddy A to Z bought it at the show, was $600. So keep in mind, these are American knives made by American companies that are employing Americans, also paying all their different taxes, disability insurance, OSHA fees, all the different things you have to do to actually, the soft costs, or actually hard costs of running a business that you don't think about, or we might not think about. But anyway, the Hinderer XM-18, or Hinderer in general, I wasn't a fan initially when I got into collecting. I didn't understand it. It was too expensive. But I totally get it now, because this is a lifetime knife with just the most simple of maintenance, which you can use a dime to adjust this pivot. Yeah, it's a knife I can pass down over and over. So that would be number 6 in American-made bangers, which brings us to number 5. And this is a Medford. So this is the Medford Slim Midi, the one I carry the most, but I've got other Medfords, and I probably, for this review, should have done something a little different to show it on washers. So we'll take away the Slim Midi, because I'm really talking about makers more than I am talking about specific knives. So Greg Medford, very polarizing figure. A lot of people like him, a lot of people hate him. He speaks his mind. I look past all that, and I'll tell you why. Because I think everybody is entitled to have an opinion. You're entitled to speak it as long as you're not yelling fire in a crowded theater. And you're also putting yourself in the position to deal with the consequences, whether that's alienating customers or angering people. We're all grown-ups. We all know how that works. But what I look at is the fact that this guy started not a lifetime ago, but started making knives. Literally started making knives. Knives that are not normal. Knives that I don't think when he started making these, he thought everybody's going to want one of these big overbuilt crazy fucking knives. Maybe he did, but I do know that Greg Medford has organically built an amazing business with amazing employees that do top-notch work, that are always at knife shows. Whether you like or hate his opinions, he's very accessible. He's very open to criticism. He might tell you to fuck off, you're wrong, and tell you why. But I can respect that about somebody. But this is about knives. And when I look at his knives, whether they're put together like this or whether I've taken it apart like I did to slick them all on this guy and on my other Midi Marauder that's not the slim Midi that runs on washers, these things are built like tanks. They're beautiful. The grinds are perfectly even. You've got different models. You've got the stamp, which the S stands for S35VN. This part number here, 110159, is actually the serial number, because when I took this knife apart, this scale has 110159, and this scale has 110159. So what he started doing and what he's doing now, all the rhetoric aside, I think is one of the finest knife builders. For a while was looking at getting a steel company, because he's not just looking out for Medford knives or AKS. Wait a minute. Well, I'm trying to think of the American Service Knife, ASK. The ASK line that he started making, that kind of modular, I don't want to say Swiss Army because that's a knock on what he's doing, but the American Service Knife. I think he looks at the industry as a whole. I think his biggest concern is knife makers, the ones that I'm showing you here and others, eventually getting put out of business by overseas unfair competition. And guys, I buy a lot of overseas knives. I've got more imported knives than I do American knives. But when you listen to his points from the point of a business owner who's manufacturing knives, and on his video, he shows you a clone that he bought and had shipped to him from China to check it out. And it costs less for him to buy the knife and ship it to China, or from China, than he could ship one of his knives to China. Not make it and ship it. The knife's made. It's worth what it's worth. He could not ship it for the same price that he got a knife that wasn't as nice as this, but it was still a knife. So he points out what he feels are unfair practices. I was running a business, or just being an American. I can appreciate that, guys. And I'm not going to take sides. Well, I'm always going to be pro-American, but I'm always also going to buy what I like. But I try to buy American when I can. And of all the grief that Greg gets, he's standing up for, in his own mind, and I think in a lot of his objective points, American strength and American resilience, right? But this is the Medford Infraction. I think Medfords are among some of the finest USA-made knives you can get. They are a little bigger, but you saw the slim Midi. The slim Midi that I was going to show you guys is as small as any EDC knife. It's got the same bearing action as any EDC knife. So you don't have to go with a big chunk in Medford. But moving on, we come to a knife, again, which I'm able to show y'all today because of my buddy A to Z EDC. Give him a follow. This is the Reeves Bog Oak Large Sebenza. I never understood this knife, never wanted this knife, never had any desire to have this knife. He does have an MX gear clip on here. The lock bar access is undeniable. The frame lock, this is the Chris Reeves integral lock. He is credited, if you Google what is the Chris Reeves integral lock, you will find out that he was the first to offer this locking mechanism. And he didn't patent it because he wanted other knife makers to be able to use the frame lock. So, first frame lock, beautiful, beautiful blade. It can be thumb flicked. It's only got the thumb on the show side, but you can get a tie connector at the stud and put it in there. So you can middle finger flick it or thumb flick it. It's not designed to be thumb flicked. I hit my little B up there. But you can easily thumb flick it. The way I like it is to slow roll it out because you feel that lock up. And I never understood that, the joy or the tactical sensation you could get from slow rolling a knife, because I've always been a action guy. But the smoothness and the stableness of this knife is next level. It is also a deep hollow ground. I believe this one's S45, maybe MagnaCut. So if you're looking for a tool that is American made, that is a little more on the simple side, that's cutter error, guys. I assure you, there's not one bar in that blade. That's me just janking it up. An amazing knife. I think they're gorgeous. When I get back in the position of buying knives, I've already put this on my grail list. A knife that until A to Z let me hang out with it for a week and do a video on it. I actually took these knives back to him, and this afternoon had him bring a couple more back so I could make this video, and this was one of them. But guys, don't rule out a Chris Reeves, whether it's a Sebenza, whether it's an Nkosi. I didn't get them. Again, amazing knife, and definitely one of the top 10 USA made knives. This is evidently, I say evidently, I've heard this, that the Trinity is allegedly Strider, Chris Reeves, and Hinderer, I think. I don't know. But these 10 are what I would consider the baddest of the bad. And that was number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this should be number 4. So this, I don't know how we would rate this. Small batch production. This is a McNees Mac 2 3.5 inch knife. This knife is made right here in Alabama. They also offer it in a Tanto. He also designed the McNees Mac B that's offered by Spyderco. But this is his, I would say, bread and butter knife. The knife that seems to always sell out. I can see why. My understanding is, talking to Scotch and things, they stay in stock for like a day now, so you can actually get one when they drop, which is good news. This knife comes in, I want to say, about $600, $550 maybe. Amazing knife. MagnaCut, USA made blade, nice stone wash, deep hollow grind, beautiful, simple handles, utilizing that same frame lock, which is kind of going to be a theme here. And absolutely therapeutic slicer, guys. Keep that in case you want to cut something else. You can get this crap Sola out of the way. I don't know why I keep whacking my B-up thing. But the McNees Mac 2 3.5 inch is an absolute banger. I love it. I think it's among America's best. It is a small batch maker, so I think it's just him and maybe a couple of guys. Maybe just him and his wife. I'm not sure. But this is the McNees 3.5 inch Mac 2. Highly recommendable knife. I love it. Fantastic. We will move on to number 3. And this is a knife from SPK, i.e., and I probably said that wrong, Alex Steingraber. This is the Lamia. This knife is amazing. It was another knife that I never had any desire in owning. I'd seen it for years. I was at Blade Show last year. Ethan Ruins had one on washers. This is actually a Gen 3 on bearings. This is the Friday the 13th drop from this past year. It is got a black distressed show side scale. Fantastic lock bar access. It's got this beautiful CNC milled blade. when you close it, you can see the SPK. You can also see the CW. This one's crewware. You open the knife, it's 100% sterile. So your blade steel disappears, and so does your SPK. But this knife, guys, is not only a cutter, it is an absolute beautiful knife. The action's great. The profile in the pocket's great. I would call it kind of a gentleman's folder, an EDC knife, a get it done knife. But I absolutely love it. It's fantastic. You can get these on drops. I think every Friday or every other Friday he tries to drop some. Just follow him on Instagram. But this is the SPK Lamia made by Alex Steingraber. Moving on to number 2. I've only got the Mini, but I've reviewed the flipperless full size Koenig Arius. Probably one of the best USA made knives you can get. It would be number 1, but number 1 kind of has changed in my mind. This knife is amazing. The ergos are top notch for me in this mini size. I can even use that choil. The action, this one's got skiffs, is next level. Flipper tab's great. Deep hollow grind. Cutter error. Anyway, yes, very, very slicey. Probably my favorite knife in my collection right now. It used to be the Field Duty. I really like this guy. At first, I was afraid it was going to be a little bit too small for me. But after carrying it, it's just perfect for what I use it for. I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge Koenig fan. The main Arius, after I reviewed it and saw it at Blade Show, I realized it was a bigger knife than I would get a lot of daily use out of. But the Mini is just perfect. So coming in at number 2, we've got the Koenig Arius Mini. Again, Koenig, small batch, doing amazing stuff in America. I think it's a mad win in M390. Which brings us to number 1. The Oz Machine Company Roosevelt. Lord Needham had sent me in a Roosevelt to check out. My buddy A to Z bought this from another buddy of mine. And go follow A to Z. This is a putter mill pattern. Oz Roosevelt. Probably one of the simplest designs I've ever seen. Basic bitch knife. But it is, for some reason, on the next level. This is my all-time grail. This is the knife that I will eventually own. I absolutely love it. I think it's stunning. It's light. It's slicey. It carries like a dream. The ergonomics are as good as I've ever felt. They are very small batch. They've just come out with an XL, which I have no interest in. And A to Z is a big guy, and he was more interested in the XL to start. And he has changed his tune because he realized I'm hitting the choil. He realized that this knife even fits his huge hand that well. The action is to die for. The detent is so crisp. And this is the Oz number 2923. I want to say it's in Magna Cut. Maybe it's in Elmax. I think it's Magna Cut. But just look at those scales. Just an amazing knife, guys. The Oz Roosevelt is definitely my number 1. It's the one that when Lord Needham sent me one that looked a lot different than that, I loved it. When A to Z got this one, I went over and checked it out. I loved it. It's the reason that I couldn't really make this video, because I think the Chris Reeves, I think the Oz, and I think the Demko need to be represented. Now, these aren't all going to fit in here, guys. I'm going to try to get the ones in I can for y'all to look at while we bid our adieus. But yeah, guys, that's 10 knives, actually 11 if you count the Zeba Fast, which is different than 5 knives Fast, don't forget. But it's only because I got him to bring over the Demko. I can't think of, and now TRM, they're amazing. They're a different price point. When I thought about TRM, Benchmade, Spyderco, they were all a little bit different price points. So I put these together based on those knives that I hear people asking about or scampering for, whatever the case may be. And that's the 10 I came up with, guys. I hope y'all enjoyed it. I hope you found it entertaining. Hope you found it informative. I hope you saw something you liked, maybe something you didn't. But I love each and every one of you. All I ask is please, 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 if you're so inclined, hit that subscribe button and the bell notification icon. But more importantly, look out for the guy or gal to your left. Look out for the guy or gal to your right. Look out for each other. Go check out my buddy A to Z EDC on Instagram. Go forward with love in your heart. Always choose debate, not hate. Be up, people. I love you all. Thanks, Joe Isabella. Peace.